From NPR, this is World Cafe. I'm Kaleo.
3, that's a magic number.
A hip-hop group sampling Schoolhouse Rock? It's not what you'd expect in 1989, when De La Soul introduced themselves to the world with offbeat charm, incredible flow, and clever beat-making. Pioneers of alternative hip-hop, De La Soul was the brainchild of three Long Islanders: Kelvin Mercer, a.k.a. Posdnuos, Vincent Mason, a.k.a. DJ Maseo, and David Jolicoeur, a.k.a. Trugoy the Dove. The Three Plugs reshaped hip-hop with their debut, 3 Feet High and Rising, and several crucial releases including De La Soul is Dead and Stakes is High. After a long wait, all of their albums are available on streaming services. Today, Pos and Maseo join me to look back on the band's remarkable career, name-checking standout samples and verses that made their music unforgettable. And they'll reflect on the passing of their bandmate and brother, Trugoy, who passed away earlier this year. Quick note. For licensing reasons, we're only able to play short snippets of album material, but hopefully hearing those will send you down a De La rabbit hole after you check out this conversation, which starts now. Enjoy.
Showing true position. This here piece is kissing the part of the pie that's missing, where that negative number fills up the casualty. Maybe you can subtract it.
De La Soul, the magic number from their seminal debut album 3 Feet High and Rising, which is now finally available on streaming music services everywhere. Joining me to talk all things De La Soul are Posdnuos, a.k.a. Plug One, and Pastemaster Mace, a.k.a. Maseo of De La Soul. I am Kaleo. It's World Cafe. Gentlemen, so nice to meet. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, no, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure being here.
Yes. So the first big question, the obvious one, this is a celebration. In your words, why did it take until 2023 to have this incredible collection of music finally available digitally?
Well, I mean, the music had been held up because of Tommy Boy as a company. They folded in early 2000 for whatever business upsets they had. So the music was actually held up in the Warner Brothers system that we didn't really have a connection to really get the music streaming. So we worked really hard at trying to do such, but due to the company that was able to purchase the catalog, which was Reservoir, they actually came to us and made a very fair deal to get the music out. But it had to take 20 years for that to happen, 20 plus for that to happen.
There was a lot of fighting. I know in 2014, you were putting out your own music directly to fans. So now that it's out, it must feel cathartic to be able to go, all right, people can hear it now.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's just a great feeling, man. It's I mean, at first it just almost didn't even feel real, because as May's saying, once we were able to partner up with Reservoir, and even then we still needed to spend time and making sure all the administrative aspects of it was done, the legal stuff, whatever samples that were on the fence and not cleared, so, and that, even in saying that didn't take long, saying that it didn't take long was still like a year. You know what I'm saying? The different publishers and owners of the labels and stuff, and they were really on a positive side of things of working with us. But during the pandemic, if there weren't a bunch of people in the office at, say, Universal, then there's a stack of requests that Universal was picking through to get through because the manpower was down. So it was things like that where we were happy to know that people were willing to work with us and get it done. Yeah. But it was just moving a bit slowly due to everything that was going on in the world with the pandemic.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, in addition to our lawyer, our friends that we came up with in the business, I think the biggest gun that we shot to get everyone's attention was the internet, the unorthodox way of letting people know the travesty of the situation. I think it was very unorthodox the way we just brought it to everyone's attention, because normally everyone's business is done in the back office, you know. And I think who we included was our fans. We work for them. more than anything. That's how that's how I truly looked at it. So I felt like everything that was done in the back office, let's try bringing it to the front office for a change and see what happened. And I think that played a big part.
Definitely. This is World Cafe. We are hanging out with Pos and Mace of De La Soul. All of their music is available digitally for the first time. So very cool. And you're releasing classic tracks as digital singles. And the most recent, I believe, is Stakes is High, title track to the 1996 album, featuring J Dilla on production. You know, obviously a legend in the world of beat making, and, you know, working with him after your time with Prince Paul on your first few records. What was the energy like having Dilla on board and working in that space with him?
I mean, he was like a personification of magic, like the magic dust that, you know, you see the Jackson sprinkling in the Can You Feel It video. You know, that's, you know, that's him in his music.
The instamatic focal point, bringing damage to your burrow. Be some brothers from the east with them beats that be thorough. Got the solar gravitation, so I'm bound to pull it. I gets down like brothers of
hearing everything he was doing with his own group Slum Village, let alone to still have the ability to crank out so much creative masterpieces outside of his group. It just inspired a whole bunch of us, whether it was us, Tribe, Common, a bunch of us, The Roots. So when it came down to that particular album and we heard that song, we knew we wanted to have a title track. And that song, that music, it felt like it. It felt like God. It felt biblical. And we was like, this is it. This is Stakes is High. And so when we were able to get it and I mean, like, wow. I mean, the most incredible thing outside of getting that music from him was hearing Dave's verse when Dave put his verse down. I mean, it was just like everything was just meant to be.
Show your love, what you got to say. I say Jesus make you take it at a high regard. And time for it nowadays ain't hard. Investing in fantasies and not God. Welcome to reality. See, time is hard.
It's De La Soul, Stakes is High, title track off their 1996 album. And it's recently been released for the first time digitally. Posdnuos and Maseo of De La Soul are here talking about their career and beyond. I'm Kaleo. Thanks for being here on the World Cafe. You know, having your whole catalog drop at once, for a certain audience, I'm talking about the younger kids, the millennials, the Zoomers and stuff like that, that's how people consume media, you know, binging entire TV shows or artist discographies. So you got a new generation of people discovering your music for the first time because that's how they consume it. What have you heard? Have you gotten any feedback from people who are, like, had their mind blown finally having a chance to hear this?
It's been just extremely positive. Even down to like surprising on the certain songs. You know, I hear it as I could be like, oh, you know, the way, even though I should know creatively, like I can see people like Lil Yachty and Lil Uzi Vert and all these different people who are just are like even visually making sure they look different, have a vibe that can relate to people in a unique manner. And it's like, I still was just like seeing the different kids who's like, yo, they're telling me about the music and I'm waiting for them to say maybe like Stakes is High or, oh my God, they love me, myself. And I have people like, yo, I Know and Tread Water. And it's like, and it just puts nothing but a smile on my face because it shows that the music is what we've always felt and wanted to be, which is timeless.
Yeah, that's been real cool for me. You know, I live in a house full of millennials. My kids are relatively adults. And amongst them and their friends, it's been a great topic, talking about our catalog and them not knowing, you know, especially the people who live closer to you, they really don't know, you know, because it's their family and it's like our job and I'm just dad, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, sure.
So, you know, so the release of everything and the impact and then now having the catalog themselves on the streaming platforms that they are, you know, attending to. My kids come with what's their favorite song, what get them motivated for the day. And, you know, that's been really, really cool.
Yeah. Do you think there's a through line, you know, 2020 hip hop, it's an evolution, right? Like it's never stopped evolving. But do you think there's a through line to what you guys were doing late 80s, early 90s and what kids are hearing in hip hop these days in the 2020s? Because at first blush, if you just listen to the rapping and delivery, you'd say like, I don't think there's a lot of common ground, but maybe there is that people don't realize is like buried underneath the surface.
I think there is. There's some common ground. There's some things that are not new under the sun. You know what I'm saying? Some things that replicate themselves, replicate it as we evolve, but with a slight twist to it. You know, even if you look at other genres and listen to what has taken place in blues and rock and how it transformed into R&B at some point. You know what I mean? So by using the different elements of what came up in a specific time with doo-wop, you know,
Even with us getting into the early levels of rap, and by the time we even came out and started sampling and then learning about other music, as Mace was saying, it's like for us, we could be like, yo, through, say, Tribe, hanging out with Q-Tip in Africa and learning about jazz records, because that really wasn't something that was normally in my household. And then you can see the connection, like, yo, I see the connection in how I think to the way Charlie Parker is playing this or what have you, or Lou Donaldson. So I think the kids are doing the same thing. They themselves can see the connection, Earl Sweatshirt sees his connection to Stakes is High, like it's really cool.
Yeah, don't underestimate the kids. They do their homework,
No, for sure.
Yeah. This is World Cafe, hanging out with Mace and Pos of De La Soul. More with the guys in a minute, but in the meantime, dig into this from their 1991 sophomore album, De La Soul is Dead. It is Ring, 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 Ha Ha Hey. Ring, 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 ha ha hey. We are here with Maseo and Posdnuos of De La Soul. All of their music digitally available for the first time. This is World Cafe. My name is Kaleo. So it's also a bittersweet time. The long-awaited arrival of your albums on streaming music. You had that really great appearance with Gorillaz at Coachella. But in February, your bandmate and your brother in music, David Jolie Kerr, a.k.a. Trugoy the Dove, passed away. First off, my condolences on your loss. How are you keeping on?
Every day is different feeling, Some days you laugh, some days you cry. But we pushing through, and doing what's necessary to continue what the mission the three of us have,
Yeah.
And just taking on the fact that he's not really gone. He just transcended, He's definitely here. He's just not here in physical form,
Understood. Yeah.
And I mean, everything we created with him while he was here, and I'm not talking about just the music, but the memories. Man, there's so many good ones. Yeah, I mean, like, Mace, I was just on the phone with Kenny Calhoun from People Were Here and It's So Easy. But, man, all you could do is just think of the memories we got with this guy that will just have you laughing so hard. So It's just too many to name of amazing moments creatively and just as friends that we have. And he had such an amazing life and touched so many people that, it was a life well earned and well lived,
Yeah.
He was the true artist of this group, and in so many ways. Like, I always, it's pretty much becoming my cliche, but it's very true. Like, he had the bird's eye view of a lot, where, me and Pos could be maybe very dominant in one way of just being B-boys, but he'll bring some sprinkle to it that makes it that De La thing. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Is there something that you think we should hear? A standout performance of his, a verse you love, anything that we can play right now in the cafe?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to my mind is It's So Easy. I mean, like, I didn't even see the potential of the track. I was literally just trying to give it away. And when he heard it, he was like, Merce, give me this track. I will kill this. I was like, all right. And when I gave it to him, I knew he was going to do what he exactly did. He destroyed it. He made it into such an amazing record.
Let's listen to it from Stakes is High. It's So Easy. De La Soul here on World Cafe.
Listen, I don't know. Gotta change the way it's going down. I fell in love with this fish who got caught in my mesh. Yo, she burned my scene up like David Koresh against a diamond.
It's so easy. It's so good to hear. De La Soul on World Cafe, their music recently made available on streaming music. And of course, they're touring. They're going to be out this summer and fall in some select dates along with LL Cool J, hanging out with Pos and Mace from De La Soul. I'm Kaleo on World Cafe. One of my favorite things to discuss is sampling. I'm such a geek of it because you become a student of musical history when you get into it. You fall down a rabbit hole and you learn about something new. And in today's age, it's kind of, to a certain extent, it's really recognized and respected. But when you were starting out, it was a very, very different culture around sampling. Like, what was your philosophy on it? Was it expression? Was it a tool? How did you see it back when you were putting together, say, like 3 Feet High and Rising?
I will honestly say for myself, I saw it as a brewing art form. Hearing artists and producers that actually came before us, such as like Stetsasonic.
Well, here's how it started. Heard you on the radio talking about rap, saying all that crap about how we sample. Give an example.
Think we'll let you get away with that? You criticize our method.
That was kind of really changing the trajectory of making it feel like it was okay to do this, what we consider to be collage art. As far as the business structure that it went into, we really had no knowledge of all of that. All we knew is that we were making something really different from these various works of music and these bits and, these parts that I actually would call the break part, And then it began to evolve when technology evolved with being able to be a bit more obscure with chopping and, and manipulating the sample where you don't really recognize it, or actually really using the record more as an instrument than now just sampling. So, it's been a significant part of the art. It has been something that have been introduced to the art form from the turntables in the very beginning, which made this whole thing we do very funky, groovy, and what we call hip hop. You know what I'm saying? Like, it is what it is.
Yeah, the early days, even when sampling came about, everyone was still playing under the same rules. Let's take the break beats we already been cutting. Let's use some of the same music until certain people would just start going outside of that. And as May said, it became like this amazing level of, for certain artists, collage. Like Public Enemy. That's just a soundscape of resistance, revolt, freedom. But it's art, you know what I'm saying? It's not just looping. It went further than that for a lot of people. So, by the time we got into it, we were definitely following that level of cutting and splicing amazing levels of just backgrounds of genres of music.
Yeah. Was there ever a holy grail of samples that you wanted but you couldn't get or clear or figure out how to use, where you're like, God, I wish I could be making a beat with this or rapping over that?
See, it's funny for me. For me, the first album, I ain't never really said this, but Mace, someone like Mace and someone like Paul being DJs had a lot of, as Mace was saying earlier, he had like the toolkit. He had the hip hop toolkit. He had the break beats that we all was trying to rehearse to in the crib. So as I said, to sample, Mace already had an array of records that he could choose from himself, but for me, I just had what was in my house that my father had from his soul collection and whatever. So it kind of helped me play into like asking Mace or saying to Dave, let's try to sample this. Let's sample this Schoolhouse Rock record that I own. Because I don't own a bunch of break beats. I got the Schoolhouse Rock record. Maybe we could put a break beat with it. And it helped me kind of get into like, I'm just trying to tell y'all the truth. Like me saying like I have this wild mind of trying all these different things. I was only using what was in my toolkit. And it was in my toolkit at the house was doo-wop records. So that's what I was using. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. What about you, Mace?
There's records that I couldn't get to back then, not because of it was a clearance issue, but it was a timing issue based on how they played live, where you kind of couldn't really get the loop properly.
Perfect.
You couldn't get it perfectly. So the way technology has evolved, it's allowing me to get to those samples that I couldn't get to back then. And even now, with the evolution of technology, doing my best way to really manipulate it in a much bigger way because of the way things have been upgraded. If we had a lot of this stuff back then, I think the way things have evolved with technology for the guys and women who produced in the 80s and the 90s with hip hop, creating hip hop, I think we deserve this technology.
Back in my day.
Because we had to really engineer a whole lot more before we can create. Now we can just really kind of thrust into creating without having to worry about engineering so much.
Yeah, I mean, for our audience listening, like in the 1980s, the technology, you could sample maybe 3, 4, 5 seconds. And so that's why like sampling was incredibly difficult. You couldn't just like lift the music out. What you guys were doing was definitely harder.
And we had no hard drive. We had tape. We had to record to tape. It was an engineering process of laying this tone called Simpty.
Yeah.
That had to take almost a half hour to do,
But first you have to stripe. When you stripe the tape, yeah.
Yeah.
There are not a lot of grease pencils in studios these days.
Right.
No.
Right.
This is World Cafe. We have so much more with Posdnuos and Maseo of De La Soul, including a very unexpected cameo in a cartoon and looking back at 3 Feet High and Rising. But first, here is their appearance on Gorilla's smash hit, Feel Good Inc.
Laughing gas, these hazmats, fast cat, lining them up like crack. Ladies, ponies at the track, it's my chocolate attack. Shit, I'm stepping in harder this year. Yeah, bear repping in harder this year.
It's Feel Good Inc. From the animated band Gorillaz and featuring De La Soul. It's World Cafe. Pos and Mace are here. De La Soul's discography now on streaming music services. Speaking of animation, I was not ready for this when I was late night watching an episode of Teen Titans Go. How did you end up making an appearance fighting a monster who is trying to steal your music? That was it's one of the most inspired things I've seen in a cartoon.
There happened to be a friend / fan who works over at Cartoon Network who saw the idea within what we were doing and decided to feed into what he thought De La has always been, practical jokers and making a joke of a real situation, and it came to fruition.
It's really them.
The day, the law, and the soul.
You're Kelvin Mercer, a.k.a. Posdnuos, a.k.a. Plug Wonder, a.k.a. Plug One. A.k.a. I'm being attacked right now? See this monster in front of me? Are you crazy?
I know I was hyped. I'm a comic head. Marvel, DC
it was
all day.
Dope.
So just to be down with it was really fun, and you really admire the process. Putting the storyboards together, us agreeing with things, us adding in, telling them let's try this, and then when they put the script together, we go and we really feel comfortable because it's like skits to us. So outside of just recording ourselves rhyming, we know how it is to now make a whole storyline out of a skit and have fun and do silly things. So we felt right at home just doing it, and then, like you said, to see it put together, and it was lovely.
We are here with De La Soul on World Cafe. Their music is on streaming services now, and they're out on tour this fall, or summer and fall. There is this ad, and I'm sure you know about it. When the album came out, there was a marketing material that was really weird. A promotional poster of a white guy in a suit holding a copy of 3 Feet High and Rising, and the text reads, "I came in for you two. I came out with De La Soul," and the blurb from the LA Times on the bottom was, "The Sgt. Peppers of the 80s. Whew, that is a lot to unpack. How did you feel about the marketing of this album that way?
We were just, and I don't want to speak for me. I just know that I was just overwhelmed with happiness that we were doing it. You know, like even to have the album cover, the suggestion of, yo, maybe we could do it like this, you know, because we've been telling you since Jennifer O'Ginny, your sound and your vibe is very similar to like hippies. And why don't you do your album cover like this? And it wasn't, we had a few ideas, you know, maybe us in an elevator going up 3 feet high, whatever, but we had no problem with trying it. And, you know, when we saw it, it was like, yo, this is cool. And I remember like yesterday going back to, we were already being signed to Rush Management, which was Russell Simmons. And Bill Adler, who worked there, was like, you really want to make your cover like this? And I was like, yeah, you know, I think it'll be cool. He said, well, I'm sure it's going to definitely stand out. And that's definitely what it did. It just stood out. But we had no idea that's what. Now, maybe Tommy Boy did, which was great on their part, but I was just happy, man.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I was happy for a lot. That advertising was ingenious to me.
Yeah.
The album cover, first seeing the album cover, wasn't quite too happy with it, but I learned to appreciate it more and more over the years, you know. And that's just young Mace not really seeing the picture, the full scope clear, you know. But the people who played their position in the art department and marketing and everybody who embraced the record, and actually the music was their interpretation. So that's what I had to really regard and respect. Like, it had a certain interpretation to everyone that reminded them of a certain time, a certain place, a certain thing, even if it was the hippie era, you know?
Yeah.
And then that advertisement, when I saw that advertisement, I was like, wow. I was like, we're actually a part of a genre that we are being responsible for touching other people who don't even rock with hip hop. You know, this is somewhat their introduction, you know?
Yeah. Talking with Posdnuos and Maseo of De La Soul. Let's take a listen to Me, Myself, and I here on World Cafe.
Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory for plugs 1 and 2. But that glory's been denied by Cassids and Gookie eyes. People think they diss my person by stating I'm darkly packed.
Just Me, Myself, and I. Oh, and Mace and Pos, because De La Soul is here. And all of their music available digitally now. Also out, playing a few gigs over the summer and fall, along with LL Cool J. All right, so before we go, I have a kind of a legacy question, because it did occur to me that, like, you know, musical scholars, hip-hop heads, fans of music, there is this very, very high level of respect and acknowledgement for like decades. It continues to this day. You know, the respect people have for De La Soul. Like, how do you feel about that kind of responsibility of that status? Because, I mean, there aren't a lot of people in the world of hip hop who are revered and have been revered for as long as you guys have.
I think, first and foremost, let me say I appreciate the love and respect wholeheartedly, you know. I think a lot of it has to do with not wearing out our welcome, not overstaying your welcome, you know, and pertaining to the art, doing our best to make great music. I think that's the true responsibility. That's always been a responsibility to ourselves, just wanting to make really good music, you know. And I think as things grown and being a part of this 50-year-old, you know, culture called hip hop,
Yeah.
you know, there is a responsibility now, for sure, you know, to uphold the legacy that we've established together, and to uphold the legacy that we played in this culture, you know.
Excellent answer. Pos, anything to add?
Well, just that it feels great to know that if someone is finding out about us, or even someone from the industry, and it's great where people can have this point of relation to someone and be like, yo, man, them De La guys, they're really good guys. Or, you know, yo, no, we know Pos, Mason, Dave. Like, so it's just really good to know that we never really did anything to put our name through the mud, or, you know, and creatively, as May said, man, we just really just always wanted to make quality music. You know, if it missed the target for someone's ear, I still feel like they could still see the quality in it. You know, maybe, you know, because we had that with Balloon Mind State. A lot of people related to that album as they got it older, but they still respect it even then. So, I mean, I just think that we've just been blessed to be guys where it's like, oh, there's Merce, Mace, and Dave, and they're regular guys, man, who have a great job. That's how we always looked at it, you know?
Yeah. This is World Cafe with De La Soul. Thrilled they've been here. And I want to end with a track that I wore out on cassette tape from a soundtrack that is kind of, well, it's kind of an anomaly because it was like one of the first soundtracks to feature hip hop and rock together at the same time. It was called Judgment Night. And I wore out this cassette tape listening to this teenage.
It's one of my favorite songs too.
I was going to say, what was that vibe like? Because you're here with this Scottish indie band putting together something for a rock, ostensibly, and hip-hop collab, but y'all sounded like nothing else on that album.
We had no idea. We didn't know Teenage Fan Club. We didn't know none of their records. We didn't even think of it like how you said, like, yo, why isn't someone putting us with Anthrax? Or why? I don't know. Maybe we were like, yo, De La need to be involved in this, but we don't know if they're going to do something. And maybe on the Teenage Fan Club, we don't know what they're going to do. Put them together. You know what I'm saying? And they put us together, and it was just cool.
It was like, if it didn't work, then we could scrap it. You know what I mean? But it worked.
Yeah.
It worked. And I mean, the way it came, when the way it came together, I vividly remember the day. We were in our corner, they were in their corner. We probably didn't speak for about a good 2 hours, 3 hours. Everybody just felt like fish out of water. Like, what do we do? You know? I remember playing a bunch of stuff on a cassette, like beats, just loops of beats and whatnot. And Dave doing something on the SB 1200 and Pos writing
And they had a lot of respect for us, which was cool because that's why they didn't even really know what to say, how to direct us. It all really came together. As always with us, it was a joke. We didn't really know what to do. We're fiddling, like you said, you was playing stuff. But the Tom Petty video came on the TV. And I was like, yo, let's make a record out of that where Tom Petty is talking about, when he says falling, let's still talk about falling off. And then everyone's laughing, and it was like, well, that's the idea. And then they start trying to play something to like the melody of, and it just all started from there.
Oh, this has made my ear to hear this story. Let's listen to it now. De La Soul and Teenage Fan Club, It's Fallen. I love the last minute and a half of that song where it is just this extended outro that sounds like you're goofing off in the studio.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking about. That's why I'm fucking out.
We're talking about that song Fallen, De La Soul and Teenage Fan Club on the Judgment Night soundtrack. And just Mace, Pos, this has been an absolute pleasure. Congrats on having the music out.
Thank you.
So people can hear it, and looking forward to hearing what's next. So thank you both so much for being here.
Artificial Intelligence Part 3 is absolutely coming.
There you go.
And we're touring, and look out for the tours.
There it is. They're out there, folks. Make sure you see them. That's De La Soul. We're back in a minute with more World Cafe.